The sun was setting when Flight -32 Zambian Kwacha disappeared from the radar. One moment, the pilots were chatting with air traffic control, and the next, silence. The Boeing 737 was carrying 128 passengers, including families, tourists, and business travelers. But within minutes, it was as if the plane had never existed. No distress call. No signal. Just gone. Deep in the heart of an uncharted jungle, metal groaned as wreckage smoldered in the thick undergrowth. The air reeked of burning fuel and torn earth. Groans and cries echoed through the wreckage. Bodies lay strewn across the jungle floor, some lifeless, others stirring, trapped in a daze of confusion and pain. Those who had survived the impact were left with a horrifying realization: they were alone. Among the survivors was Daniel Carter, a seasoned journalist used to covering war zones, now facing a battle unlike any other. Next to him, a young mother, Lillian Reyes, clutched her daughter's tiny hand, whispering prayers. Nearby, an off-duty pilot, Aaron Blake, was already scanning the wreckage, his mind racing to figure out what had gone wrong. The jungle pulsed with life, unfamiliar sounds, rustling leaves, distant howls. The survivors' relief at being alive quickly turned to fear. They had no food, no water, and no way to call for help. The plane's emergency beacon had been destroyed in the crash. No one knew they were here. They had to survive on their own. As night fell, the real horror began. Strange noises echoed from the darkness. Eyes gleamed from the trees. And then, the first survivor went missing. Morning arrived with a heavy mist, clinging to the broken remains of Flight -32 Zambian Kwacha like a ghostly shroud. The survivors gathered near the wreckage, their faces etched with exhaustion and fear. The disappearance of one of their own had shaken them, but they had no time to grieve. Survival demanded action. Daniel took charge, organizing a search for food and water. Aaron, using his aviation knowledge, salvaged anything useful from the wreckage. Lillian stayed with the injured, using torn fabric as bandages, trying to keep her daughter calm in the process. As they moved through the jungle, they quickly realized its dangers. Towering trees blocked out the sky, making navigation nearly impossible. The air buzzed with insects, and every step was met with the rustling of unseen creatures. Then came the discovery: a trail of blood leading away from the crash site. Whispers of fear spread among them. Had the missing survivor wandered off injured, or had something taken them? They followed the trail cautiously, hoping for answers. It led them to a clearing where the jungle floor was disturbed, signs of a struggle. But there was no sign of their missing companion, only deep claw marks in the earth, and the eerie silence that followed. Panic set in. The jungle wasn't just indifferent, it was hunting them. The survivors huddled together, their eyes darting into the dense jungle, searching for movement. Fear wrapped around them like a tightening noose. Something was out there. Something that had taken one of them. Aaron gripped a makeshift spear, his muscles tensed. "We need to move. Staying here makes us sitting targets." The others nodded, but hesitation clung to their every step. With each rustling leaf and snapping twig, their breath hitched, expecting something to lunge from the shadows. Lillian kept her daughter close, whispering reassurances she barely believed. Daniel led the way, carving symbols into tree trunks with a piece of metal from the wreckage, a desperate attempt to mark their path. They had no map, no way to navigate, only instinct and sheer will. Hours passed, the oppressive heat pressing down on them. Then, they stumbled upon something that froze them in place, a crude wooden structure, hidden beneath vines and thick foliage. It wasn't abandoned. Smoke curled from a fire pit, and fresh footprints dotted the muddy ground. Before they could react, a guttural growl rumbled from behind. A figure emerged from the shadows, its eyes gleaming with something primal. The survivors weren't alone. And they weren't welcome. The air grew thick with tension as the survivors stood frozen, staring at the figure emerging from the shadows. It was a man, his body covered in dirt and scars, his clothes tattered remnants of a uniform long forgotten. His eyes, wild and piercing, darted between them, assessing, deciding. Daniel stepped forward cautiously. "We don't want trouble. We're just trying to survive." The man tilted his head, then grunted. "You shouldn't be here. They don't like outsiders." A chill ran through the group. "Who's they?" Lillian asked, clutching her daughter tighter. The man didn't answer. Instead, he gestured for them to follow and led them deeper into the jungle. The survivors hesitated but knew they had little choice. They followed him to a hidden clearing where makeshift shelters stood, remnants of past survivors. Old belongings, weathered and forgotten, littered the area. "This is what's left of those before you," the man said grimly. "Some made it out. Most didn't." Aaron swallowed hard. "And the others? The ones that didn't?" The man's expression darkened. "Taken. By the jungle. By them." Before anyone could question further, a piercing scream echoed through the trees. Something was coming. Something hungry. The survivors had only moments to decide: run, hide, or fight.